of young people being murdered at a music festival in southern Israel without feeling horrified. It's awful, and there's no excusing it. No matter what you think of Israel's policies in Gaza, you are not allowed to shoot people at music festivals. That's a crime. Israel has a right to respond to that crime and to defend itself.
I mean, what happened against Israel? You said it, I believe it. It is barbaric, it is medieval, it is wrong, and Israel as a nation absolutely has the right to self-defense, to its own national existence.
Well, so you're not arguing on behalf of Hamas?
Of course. I mean, the things that people will say on the internet appall me, but Hamas is a terrorist group and deserves to be held accountable for the dastardly acts. I mean, this was barbaric. It was medieval.
The terrorist group Hamas, although the BBC will never call them terrorists, but the Hamas who launched those appalling, barbaric attacks on everything down to babies on October the 7th.
I'm an American. I was horrified by what happened on October 7th. Innocents died, and that's awful. And I hated watching it. And I feel so sorry for the Israelis who were killed.
Claiming that Hamas is a group of jihadis, they're Islamic extremists, which they also claim constantly. Which I don't know if that's true, by the way. It seems more like a political organization.
Yeah. Wow. So Tucker, yep, no surprise there. Always changing things up. That's what happens when you end up interviewing Qatar and siding with them. Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of the Speak the Truth podcast. I'm your host, Matt Tardio. If you haven't yet, make sure you like and subscribe. If you're not subscribed to the channel, I don't know what you're doing with your life. Listen, today over inside of Israel, there was a massive terror attack. You ended up having two jihadists from the West Bank. Word is now that they came out of Ramallah, and they went over to this bus stop. Driver ends up getting out. There's people that are saying that this whole thing was orchestrated. We'll get into that here in just a little bit, and that the driver could have been in on it. Don't think that's the case. But and then two jihadists basically got on the bus and just started shooting the place up. Young man actually ended up going over and shooting one of the terrorists and fighting back. So all of that and a heck of a lot more. Israel's also opened up bombing over inside of the Gaza Strip again. They are intensifying their airstrikes against Hamas infrastructure inside of Gaza City. Got new airstrike videos coming at you today. 800 drones yesterday got fired at Ukraine from Russia, including striking what appears to be the parliament building, going after them over there as well. And yesterday, airport inside of Israel also ended up getting struck by a Houthi drone. Ladies and gentlemen, we have so much stuff to go over. I don't even know where to begin, but because of all of the heavy stuff we're about to go over, I figure I'll just start off with the cause of famine in Gaza. Look what I found.
حسن فراورة شو فراورة عالدواق يا حاج عالدواق يلا دوق وبدي دوق كيف ألف والله نظيفة كيف نظيفة يعني نظيفة يعني اليوم ايش اليوم الخميس كله ياكل نظيف يا حاج هذا حسن فراورة شو
Yep. There's your cause of famine. I figured while I wait on everybody to roll in here, I might as well give you guys some good stuff to look over as we do it. All right, we've got, who is it? Colby McCurdy gifting out a Speak the Truth membership along with Squash M and James Powers. Thank you guys very much for gifting those out. Heck yeah, man. YouTube's also got some new feature that allows you guys to like hype up the stream. So if you guys want this information to be shared more, you've now got the ability to like swipe just to the side a little bit more. Like when you go to click share or whatever, you can actually hype the video. So make sure that you guys hype the video as well, because it's a new YouTube feature. They're always going to try to do that, and you can get it out there. This is a view of the terror attack taking place this morning over inside Israel. And what you can actually see is this is a view of a taxi driver, I believe, that's going up there. The attack actually took place right up over here, right? Like over, you got one white car, then two white cars. The attack was actually going down right up over here on the right side of the road on one of those buses. Let's go ahead and give it a watch. Like a boss. Like a freaking boss. I don't know if you guys saw that, these rounds striking this window right up over here by this guy's head, but that definitely happened. Now, that was a taxi cab driver that obviously had an elderly lady in the back of it. James Powers came in gifting out another Speak the Truth membership. And when you actually watch like what ends up happening, obviously here we can see why he took his sweet time getting this individual out of the vehicle, because he didn't want to leave this woman behind. And as he was doing that, let's just watch, like literally right here, you end up seeing this bus window getting shattered. The rounds literally flying right past him. Doesn't even phase the guy. He's just focused on getting that woman out of there. That's simply amazing. I mean, that man within himself, in my opinion, is a hero. And that is exactly what men are supposed to be. They're not out there to look out for themselves. They're there to take care of other people. And that is what you should be as a man. Pathcoin first coming in, gifting out 2-0. That's 20 Speak the Truth memberships. Appreciate you. Let's keep some of these videos of this morning rolling. This is the aftermath, along with like a couple interviews that went down over there.
שלום. מה את יכולה לספר? הייתי באוטובוס מ-62. אני הייתי באוטובוס. האוטו היה מפוצץ. הנהג לא רצה, הוא לא אמר לנו לרדת. היינו שם, אי אפשר לדבר. אי אפשר להגיד כמה. איך שירדנו, התחילו מחבלים לירות בנו, אני הייתי בסוף, ואז יכולתי לצאת וברחתי מסביב. ואז היו שם מסות של אנשים בתוך התחנה, וירו, מה שהיה לה, אני לא יודעת, אני הלכתי בצד השני, ברחתי, הספקתי לברוח. אבל אז יש...
It's freaking insane. Absolutely nuts when we start looking at this. This is a video. Well, hold on. Before I play that one, yeah, let's go ahead and play that one. So as this attack went down, what you guys are going to end up seeing, you're going to see it right up over here. You see this young man, all right, as this video plays, what you're going to see is a young man that comes running up right here. And I believe this video actually shows him with like a red circle around. So you're going to be able to see him pretty clear. And that young man actually grabs, goes up over to fight these jihadists with a freaking pistol, and gets up on that bus and goes to duke it out with them. Watch. There you see that young man going up there, getting up to the bus. That's right. I muted myself. I'm sorry. So what I always do that, man. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to mute myself for this portion of the video, and then I always forget to turn it back on. Oh yeah. I love it. Yeah. Everybody tell me, come on. Just hit the comments. Just bring it in. Everybody tell me, just let me know. Thank you. All right. So what they ended up doing was they ended up getting off. Okay. Everybody, I'm aware. Calm down. Everybody calm down. That's my one dumb mistake for the day. I always used to say I get one dumb mistake for the day, and that was it. All right. So what you actually end up seeing in the next video is you're going to see these terrorists that got all tuckered out after this fight. They get very, very tired, very, very tired. And they end up falling asleep right up over here on this overpass. Okay. And so in between the bus that they were on and here, they actually ended up shooting several more Israelis when they were on their way out. And that is what you're going to end up seeing in this next video. Let me get this up on your screen. Just a warning, they're sleeping. So there, this kind of gives you a better view where everybody's standing around right here. This is where those terrorists ended up expiring at. And then along the way, like I said, on their way out, that's where they had like shot a couple people. Now, what the word is that's coming out of that area is that that young man that you saw go and get up on that bus and start shooting and fighting back actually wounded one of those terrorists. And that's actually what forced them out of that area. So that young man fighting back is what forced them up over onto that street. And when they got on the street, I believe it was an off-duty IDF reserve soldier, something of that nature, is kind of what the going rumor is right now, that ended up shooting the other one, and they both ended up taking a nap right there on the side of the street. Now, Israel says that these terrorists ended up coming out of Ramallah, that they have information. They didn't confirm the identities of the individuals, but they said that they know that they came out of Ramallah. And so Israel has pushed into Ramallah, according to Netanyahu. You guys are going to see that here in just a little bit. And they're going to be going after their support network as well. So expect an uptick in operations over there. Now, this is kind of important. Last week, I told you guys that you are going to see an uptick in terrorist attacks because of the ongoing operations inside of Gaza, but more specifically, because of what Israel is doing over inside of Gaza City. It's Hamas's last stronghold. Iran's not going to like it, and they're going to be pushing these other little terrorist organizations to go and conduct attacks, not just in Israel, but also over in other Western nations. We saw one that got thwarted over inside of Europe last week. I think it was like the day I said it, by a guy that was sympathizing with ISIS. So it's not just people that you need to be worried about over inside Israel coming out of the West Bank. It's all of the sympathizers that are going to be using this as some sort of a catalyst, if you will, whether they be ISIS sympathizers, Taliban, who cares what jihadist organization they subscribe to. They're all using like what's taking place inside Gaza is a catalyst to go out and conduct terror attacks across the West. That's just how it is. That's what's happening there. Now, I told you guys that there was a young man. He is a yeshiva student and or a former yeshiva student. It's not quite clear, that ended up, conducting that fight back. I gotta mute it right here. And here you can actually see he had stuck around afterwards. I don't know if it gets any clearer. I can blow it up for you guys. But he had actually stuck around afterwards to, obviously speak with the Israeli authorities. And that's him right there. That's that young man in the white shirt that you ended up seeing. Very, very freaking young individual from everything that I've heard. I don't know if he's, 20, 21. I have no idea. No idea how old this individual is, but that is the person that ended up fighting back and actually rushing towards the scene in order to take them down. Also saw several other people inside of that initial video with firearms on them that were moving towards the scene. So the only reason this thing kind of like slowed down and was minimized to the best that it was the fact that people grabbed firearms, or people were carrying firearms and ran over there and fought back. Now, I made a mention this morning over here in the United States that often when we see things like this, what we hear from the left and the Democrats is that all of this is happening because of Israel's illegal occupation, and that these Palestinians are simply resisting. And it's the fault of Israel, and they must figure out that it's their illegal occupation that's causing all of this violence. And you have to understand why they're going about and doing those things. Now, this is a huge mass shooting event, right, that just took place. If it wasn't stopped, that number could have easily been dozens to 100 people killed and or wounded if people weren't actually there and able to fight back and stand up. Remember how I told you guys that when men fail to act, things go bad. And here in this video, just in this one situation, we have two examples of men actually being men. Thank God. Two men, actually three, if we really think about it, the reservists that went over there and ended up popping them and dropping them at the end. So 3, you have the taxi driver that was taking care of that old lady, doesn't care. He's there and he's going to protect that old woman. It's good example number 1 of being a man. Good example number 2 of being a man is this young man right here that ended up running up over there and fighting back. Good example number 3 is the reservist that went over there and helped finish him off and joined in on the fight. But over here in America, we're going to sit there and we're going to blame the guns. Every time there's a mass shooting, we're going to blame the firearms themselves. We're going to say it's the firearms' fault. But over here in Israel, it's always the Jews. So how come we never hear Democrats in America calling for a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, and that's going to solve the problem inside of Israel? And I think the answer is it won't. And they know that, and it's just a political talking point for them. It's really freaking sad. I don't like it. Oh man, Daron, I just got your message. Jesus, man, that's just freaking insane. Absolutely insane. Here's a statement by Netanyahu.
אנחנו במלחמה, במלחמה עצימה נגד הטרור בכמה חזיתות. ראשית אני רוצה לשלוח תנחומים למשפחות הנרצחים, וכמובן איחולי החלמה לפצועים. כשאני אומר שאנחנו במלחמה עצימה בכמה חזיתות, יש לנו כמובן הצלחות אדירות נגד משטרי הטרור, נגד ארגוני הטרור, אבל המלחמה נמשכת גם ברצועת עזה, שבה נחריב את החמאס. כפי שהבטחנו ונשחרר את חטופינו, כל חטופינו. ולצערנו גם בירושלים. ביהודה ושומרון פעלנו בתקיפות רבה מאוד. השב"כ וצה"ל סיכלו מאות, וגם משטרת ישראל, סיכלו מאות פיגועים השנה. אבל לצערנו לא בבוקר הזה. אנחנו עכשיו במרדף, בכיתור של הכפרים שמהם באו המרצחים, ואנחנו נשיג את כל מי שסייע באדם, כל מי ששילח אותם, ואנחנו ננקוט בצעדים קשים עוד יותר. אני רוצה לומר בצורה הכי ברורה, הרציחות הללו, הפיגועים הללו, בכל הגזרות, הם לא מרפים את ידינו. הם רק מגדילים את הנחישות שלנו, להשלים את המשימות שלקחנו על עצמנו. גם בעזה, גם ביהודה ושומרון, בכל מקום. אנחנו נלחמים בטרור, במשטר הטרור של החות'ים, באיראן שמגבה את כולם, בעזה, בלבנון, בחיזבאללה, בכל הגזרות. אנחנו לא מרפים וגם לא נרפה. אנחנו נעצים את הפעולות שלנו, ואנחנו נשיג את כל המטרות שלנו.
I can't express enough that what Netanyahu just stated is absolutely correct, and we would do the exact same thing here in the United States. Not that we would, we absolutely did. You know, when the United States got attacked by radical Islamists, we launched war, and we went frickin' ham. And we didn't stop for 20 years. And right now, Israel is doing the exact same thing. So anybody that had a doubt in their mind that there could be some sort of a peaceful two-state solution for any of that coming out, I see a lot of people calling for annexation of the West Bank and annexation of Gaza. A peaceful two-state solution, in my mind, doesn't exist. It doesn't go anywhere. At one point in time, I actually thought that maybe there was a possibility for that happening. And then you learn more. And then you also judge people by their actions, right? And what the actions of the Palestinian people speak is that they don't want just the West Bank. They don't want just Gaza. They want all of Israel. And that is abundantly clear in their actions of electing Hamas into power. That is abundantly clear of their support for Hamas over inside of the Gaza Strip. And that is abundantly clear every single time there's a terror attack that takes place on Israeli soil, and they stand there and they celebrate, because that is exactly what they do every single time. They celebrate these attacks. And I don't see Al Jazeera going over there and covering anybody inside Gaza that's saying, hey, that's a tragedy, we condemn these attacks, because they won't. You guys know Al Jazeera is still running around inside Gaza, right? With journalists, right? The Hamas journalists that are submitting things to Al Jazeera. But they won't put information like that out because it doesn't exist there. I would challenge them to actually find people that feel that way. Go find some Gazans that are willing to condemn today's terror attacks. Go find people in the West Bank that are willing to condemn today's terror attack. You won't find them. Otherwise, they'd be all over the dang news. When was the last time you saw a Palestinian in general being interviewed by any media outlet inside of Gaza that is condemning what took place on October 7th? Has anybody seen it? In this case, the lack of speaking out speaks volumes. Their lack of speaking out should echo around the freaking world. That nobody's standing there saying, don't do this. Stop doing that. Because that speaks directly to their radical ideology. And that ideology is what makes them such a threat to the West. That's exactly why no other nation on this freaking planet wants to take them in. Nobody. They don't care. They won't do it. And I don't blame them for it one tiny bit. I mean, you know what we do end up seeing? This took place over inside of, what was it? I want to say Brussels. Yeah, this was over inside Brussels, ladies and gentlemen. There you go. This is a resistance rally. This is a resistance rally where you have people dressing up as jihadists and running around with fake firearms, pretending to kill people and taking hostages and getting their jihadists out. Look at that. You guys see that? They even went so far as to having people shot and killed laying on the ground, and they're celebrating it. This is what people in the West are looking at and saying, no, we've woken up. We are paying attention to what's going on, and we've woken up. This is what the woke looks like when it goes down to the Palestinian resistance. You have people in the West that are openly celebrating murder. That are openly celebrating murder. And it's not right. And it's not okay. This is the reason things like this, by the way, demonstrations like this are just as dangerous as any of the propaganda that's being put out, if not more. Because people see this and they think, you know what? The West has our back. So now we can go and we can conduct violent terror attacks over inside Israel. Now we can go out and we can conduct, jihadist attacks here in the United States of America. Now we can start speaking up about this, like, what do they call it? Colonizer system that exists. And they take back and they deny history. They did just flat out deny it. They try to paint the picture that Jews didn't exist in Israel before 1948, and that the whole reason that took place has to do with, I don't know, how do I want to say it? The whole thing has to do with, World War II, and that's where they all ended up coming from. I'm going to play this video for you guys real quick. I have no idea who produced it or where it came from, but I'm going to show you some facts afterwards.
Quick story, early 1900 Palestine. Many think it was a wasteland, but I want to show you our pride and joy before the Zionists arrived. Did you know that from early 1921, Palestine had the very first hydroelectric power plant in the Middle East? Yes, we even had another diesel power plant in Jaffa. Both plants were founded by the wealthy Arab Pinhas Rutenberg. Since
The wealthy Arab Pinhas Rutenberg. Now, this obviously is a frickin' play, right? Like, this is a joke. That's not what ended up taking place. But I went over and I looked up that individual. Pinhas Rutenberg, all right? Born over inside of Russia, Socialist Revolutionary Party, fled due to the Bolshevik Revolution during World War I. He was among the founders of the Jewish Legion and the American Jewish Congress. He immigrated to Mandatory Palestine and founded the Palestinian Electric Corporation in 1923. He is a vocal and committed Zionist. You had these people that were migrating to Israel all the way back in the 1920s. And they became, like, if you will, like the trees that were dropping all the dang fruit on the ground over there for everybody to be able to eat. This man did so much just by putting in that power plant. Yeah, he looks angry, but let's be honest. The man opened up a massive power plant. How many Palestinians do you think still benefit from that? How many, like all of that, right? And there's example after example after example of all of these things taking place prior to. And so I like to bring this up because it just goes against, how do I want to say, combating the disinformation, if you will, that all of this was done prior to. This is, wow, this thing is way out of whack. This is a clip from the former president of the ICJ. and it has to do with genocide, because that's what everybody's screaming about. I want you guys to listen.
Would it be fair to say, and I'm no lawyer, and many people watching and listening will not be lawyers, but would it be fair to say that the key point that you made your initial order and ruling upon was whether or not there was a plausible case that should be taken on by the court of genocide in the case of Israel's actions in Gaza after October 7, and you quite clearly decided that there was a plausible case? Is it right to say that's at the heart of what you decided?
You know, I'm glad I have a chance to address that, because the court's test for deciding whether to impose measures uses the idea of plausibility, but the test is the plausibility of the rights that are asserted by the applicant, in this case, South Africa. So the court decided that the Palestinians had a plausible right to be protected from genocide, and that South Africa had the right to present that claim in the court. It then looked at the facts as well, but it did not decide, and this is something where I'm correcting what's often said in the media, it didn't decide that the claim of genocide was plausible.
It didn't decide that the claim of genocide was plausible. Not even probable, but plausible. The entire deal with the ICJ had nothing to do with Israel committing genocide, and everything to do with whether or not the people had a right to be protected from genocide, and whether or not Israel had or not Israel, but South Africa had a right to bring that claim to the ICJ. And they found that, yes, they had a right to bring that claim to the ICJ and to have it be heard, but it was unfounded. Completely and totally unfounded. And when I was over on TikTok yesterday having debates with people, and some guy was like, well, just wait, it's not there yet. Well, how long do we have to wait? Because even if we were to take the Palestinians and the Gaza Ministry of Health at their freaking word right now, of just around 62,000 civilians, or excuse me, 62,000 deaths inside of Gaza, and I'm going to round that down to 60,000 just to make your life easy. But don't worry, I'm going to be fair, because the Israeli military estimates anywhere around 22 to 23,000 jihadists killed over inside of the Gaza Strip. So we'll go ahead and we'll round that down to 20. If you were just to take those two figures, just those two figures within themselves, and you put them together, that would be one combatant for two civilians. So a 1-to-2 civ-cas ratio. Internationally speaking, as far as the UN goes and tracking these figures over time, the average of one of these conflicts is 1-to-6, and it goes up to 1-to-9. 1-to-6, and it goes all the way up to 1-to-9. United States inside of Iraq was around 1-to-3.5 to 4, somewhere in there, 3.7 maybe, something like that. This figure, this case for genocide, is completely and totally unfreaking founded. And you're going to see even more evidence of that as we continue on further today. But nonetheless, it's sparking problems. It's sparking problems this weekend over inside of Australia. There was a huge freaking, I wouldn't even call it a huge, but like a decent rally over on like an Australian beach. And the Aussies got pissed. And there's much better angles of this. You can see the small crowd of pro-Palestinians out on the beach. And then up over here, this whole walkway was filled with freaking Aussies that were just livid, that eventually took the fight to these nut jobs. Be more like Australia. Don't put up with this BS. This is wrong. Them standing there, fully knowing who is behind and what they are backing, which is a false genocide, which is literal, like false genocide accusing Israel of it, while the other side absolutely wants genocide. It's like when you look at like narcissism and that whole reflecting portion, everything that the Palestinians are accusing Israel of, they quite literally do to them. Like they do. You can see it in today's terror attack. And it just continues on. Obviously, this weekend, Israel ended up ramping up operations, and it started last week over inside of Gaza, like towards the end, like Thursday, Friday last week. Israel started ramping up airstrikes going after terror infrastructure. inside Gaza City because they're about to go in and launch a massive attack. And that's when I warned you guys that you need to be very concerned with the future over in the West, that you're going to see an uptick in terror attacks. And wouldn't you know it, we started to see an uptick. What you end up noticing in a lot of these videos is that all of these cameras are pre-staged, that they're all ready and waiting for these bombs to get dropped. The house was completely destroyed. This one wasn't even a house, by the way. And now we're just going to start passing through some airstrike footage that's taken place over the weekend. Before we get into that, we're going to talk about the airport that ended up getting hit, a tiny little regional airport over there. And it got hit by a drone. This took place yesterday. So a Houthi drone ended up making it through. There were several that were actually launched over at Israel. Most of them were shot down. One little one made it through. There was only 2 injuries yesterday that ended up coming out of this drone attack. One from shrapnel and the other one from like, what do you call it? Basically like a panic attack. So that ended up going down. Let me see if I got the inside view of it. Yes, I do. Here's your inside view of where that drone ended up striking. Yes, it exploded. No, it didn't really do anything. It happened over by the security checkpoint. And like I said, you only had one person that ended up getting injured from shrapnel. The other person ended up having a panic attack, and those were the only 2 that ended up getting treated. Meanwhile, over inside of Gaza City today, we have events like this occurring. Incog Faraday coming in and giving out 5 Speak the Truth memberships. Thank you so much, sir. Greatly appreciate it. Notice how, like, after the first strike, building ends up not collapsing, so then they send in a second munition over there, and then the whole thing ends up going down. Now, what I've noticed is that Israel's actually really smart. In all of these different strikes I see on these buildings, they know they're built, like, poorly, and so they just end up going after the base of the structure, and attacking the base of the structure essentially causes the entire thing to collapse. Now, what you'll notice about the majority of these buildings as well is that there are a lot of high-rise structures. So that, with inside Gaza City, is what we would call typically in the military as key terrain. So Israel is going after and they're destroying the key terrain for Hamas before they go in. And again, we're seeing an uptick in these strikes. Over the weekend, we saw all the leaflets that ended up getting dropped, telling the Gazans to get the heck out of Gaza City, basically pull out and leave now. All of that is a sign that the ground operation inside Gaza City is about to seriously kick off, and that there's going to be no backing out of that once Israel goes in. I do not believe that any sort of freaking peace or hostage deal is on the table at this point because of the different strikes and stuff like that that we're seeing over there.
شفتيها كيف؟ اهدى يا ماما
Linda, I'm sorry you're tired of hearing about war, but at the end of the day, this is, like, honestly, if we're going to talk about what caused this and where it came from, it was ignoring this. The reason this has got to the point where it has, both inside of Ukraine and inside of Russia, is because we have ignored everything We have thought that we can just give in to Russia's demand, Russia can take Crimea, and that we can ignore the fact that they illegally annexed Crimea. We ignored for over a decade that Russian troops were running into the Donbass, and we did nothing about it. And the end result of that was a full-blown invasion of Ukraine. Similarly, over in the Middle East, we've ignored for decades of Iranian proxy organizations conducting terror attacks around the Middle East, including Hezbollah. We've ignored Hezbollah. I mean, how many Marines did they freaking kill back in the 80s? Right? And how long have they been attacking Israel? How like much death and destruction has Hezbollah caused? How much death and destruction has the IRGC caused? It's estimated in the thousands the amount of U.S. troops that were killed by Iran during the global war on terror as a result of them giving ammunition, giving intelligence, and pushing people out. We ignored that. We chose to do nothing about it. We remained pacifists as far as that went. The Houthis taking over Yemen, while we did take part in some bombing campaigns and we backed certain people that were going in there, yeah, all that's true. But by and large, we ignored it. What we did was minute in comparison to the size of that organization. As an end result, we ended up having the Red Sea closed down. By being pacifists and ignoring the fact that sometimes you have to canoe people's foreheads in order to make things happen, you allow that to build up and get to the point to this. And then your end result ends up being like a massive takeover, because eventually you have to face them. You have to deal with them eventually. You can't just ignore them and pretend like they don't exist. And that's the problem, is that so many of our politicians these days are still pushing for like some sort of a freaking like peace deal and saying, no, if we just give them, if we just give them their own state, if we just listen to Russia, Russia's trying to protect the people in the East. No, the hell they aren't. No, they're not. If they were just trying to protect the people in the East, they wouldn't have invaded all the way over to Kiev. They wouldn't have dropped paratroopers outside of frickin' Lviv. They wouldn't have done these things. They wouldn't be wanting the port of Odessa if all they were trying to do was protect the people of the Donbass. That's not it. It has nothing to do with that. And the more you buy into that freaking garbage, the worse it's going to get. You have to understand that sometimes it takes doing bad things to stop bad people. And some of those bad things include civilian casualties, otherwise known as collateral damage in warfare. Sometimes that has to take place in order to stop for the greater of the good. And I'm not saying that at all times the greater cause for the good is the one thing that we all need to look at and abide by. Sometimes that's the wrong answer. But when it goes down to people that are willing to kill you in order to accomplish their objective, you better kill them back. And what we've been doing is we've been ignoring that. We've been pretending like we can just give them soccer balls and frickin' humanitarian aid and that's going to solve this entire situation. And that's not the case. We've been pretending like we can just leverage sanctions on Russia and that's going to stop them from doing anything further inside of Ukraine. Again, not the case. Over 800 flipping drones this weekend. I hate to say it, but doing this is the right answer. This guarantees that those individuals can't hurt you. This guarantees that they can't come after you. This guarantees that those people that were inside of that building are not going to be waging any more war, any more jihadist attacks, any more anything. It's going to completely and totally stop them. Why? Because dead people can't fight back. They can't. By the way, this particular airstrike that I showed was covered by 3 different angles, meaning they were well aware. And the time frame that's been established by the media is about 1 hour. They're given about 1 hour warning in order to evacuate these buildings. By the way, that's what we call a secondary detonation, all right, or a sympathetic detonation. You guys can see it. That's the initial strike. And then the sympathetic detonation takes place right here. You guys can see it blowing out. So there's a lot of explosives in that bottom floor of that building. Watch. guys saw that, right? Secondary detonation, sympathetic detonation took place inside of that building. That wasn't a freaking civilian target. That was a legitimate military target that ended up getting smashed. Those explosives would have been used to kill other people. So again, violence is the answer. You have to use violence in order to stop violent people who are willing to die for their beliefs. There's no other way to go about it. If somebody's willing to die for their beliefs, you better let them frickin' die for it. And I like how this cameraman tries to zoom in over across the tents and pretends like they didn't put that terror infrastructure in so dang close to the civilian population, alleged civilian population over there. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the problem. This is what we mean by human shields. Are there accounts of Palestinians being held up in front of frickin' Hamas fighters? I haven't really seen any videos that substantiate that, but what I have seen is video after video after video of things like this, where Hamas sets their infrastructure up inside of these refugee areas, and they allow it to happen. Send a question in chat, but YouTube won't let me super chat it. Well, that's freaking annoying, man. I didn't see your question, dude. Just tag me in it, and I'll get to it. Trouble Actual coming in, gifting out 5 Speak the Truth memberships. Tom Too Tall wants to remind you guys to make sure you hit the like button, share, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Squash him. Gifted out a Speak the Truth membership. Coldy McCurdy doing the same dang thing. Cletus! They will never learn and cry about their actions later. Yeah, of course they will, man. Of course they will. They're going to continue to cry about it. Even when this thing's all said and done, they're going to be protesting on the streets trying to claim that this is illegal. Bronx Gun Hillard gifting out $1. Thank you, sir. Bronx Guy Gun. Bronx Guy Gun? I don't know. It's amazing that they knew to have that camera set up and rolling, waiting for that airstrike to come in, and they backed away from it. That's a cell phone just propped up on the ground, ladies and gentlemen. That's what that is. Sitting there waiting to cover this. Why? Because they got warned before it ended up taking place. Again, numerous different angles. That's not genocide. That's more than the United States government would ever frickin' do. That's more than Barack Obama ever did. We're going to shift your guys' focus away from Gaza City and away from Israel, and we're going to go all the way up over into Ukraine, where over 800 drones and numerous ballistic missiles ended up getting fired into Kiev. 20 people are said to have been wounded yesterday, and an infant alongside with her mother are in critical condition because of it. This right here reportedly ends up showing some of the recovery operations over inside of Ukraine, of them going over to take people out from the buried rubble. Listen to what I said. 800 drones. Over 800 drones impacting civilian structures in Ukraine. Vast majority of them concentrated on Kiev. The Russians have been smashing Kiev for the last 30 plus days straight, almost relentlessly. You know, it was like 30 days ago, we talked about like 300, then it was like 4 and then 5, and now it's 800. A wave of 800 of these dang drones smashing into Kiev. I want you to think about that. It's absolutely insane. They are trying to like tear down civilian infrastructure. Why is this not international news, ladies and gentlemen? How is this not international news, like major international news? Why is this not being covered? That 800 freaking drones were being shot. I guarantee you, if Israel had shot 800 drones into Gaza, that crap would be all over the dang place. All over. that freaking mom and her infant would be being waved around on social media and they'd be freaking complaining about it left and right, and you'd never hear the dang end of it. Ever. Oh, my God. Minister of Defense for Ukraine said this. Today, Russia carried out the largest attack on Ukraine with drones and missiles. Over 800 drones, 4 ballistic missiles, and 9 cruise missiles. As always, the target of Russian terrorists were civilian infrastructure and residential buildings. There are killed and injured, including a child among the dead. My condolences to the families who lost their loved ones. Next week, the UDCG meeting will take place, with key attention on strengthening air defense and enhancing Ukraine's ability to strike deep into the aggressor's territory. I call on all of our partners to be very specific and swift in their decisions on providing air defense systems and support to Ukrainian producers of long-range drones. Ukrainian parliament ended up taking a whack as well. As you guys can see here, I've got more imagery and videos and stuff like that taking place. Just take a look. 800 flipping drones. 800. Username, Matt thinks he knows what would happen. What I think would happen if what, there, bud? What I think I know would happen with what? I see so many messages getting deleted, so I'm just going to hide users from channel when I see my mods are just multiple deleting your guys' messages. Take a look. This is Kiev. This is the result of 800 frickin' drones. And yeah, I do know exactly what happens with unchecked radical Islam. And I do know what happens with unchecked Russian aggression. And you know what? There was a point in time when the entire world knew what happens with unchecked Russian aggression. That's why NATO was established to begin with, because they were a massive threat because of things like this. Russians, like the radical jihadists, words cannot be trusted. It's been proven time and time again this year, every single time that Trump ends up speaking with frickin' Putin and coming out with an understanding of what's going to take place. Trump speaks on that understanding, and then Russia turns around and launches even larger attacks on Ukraine. Incog Faraday coming in and gifting out 50, saying extra safe travels. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. For those of you guys that don't know, I am taking off here in the near future to go over to Israel. In getting access to a couple different locations, and I'll be updating you guys while I am over there. All right, so you guys will get plenty of updates being pushed out while I'm over there, situation dependent. All right, some of the places I'm going to, I'm not going to be allowed to bring cameras, but I will have a videographer provided to me for the purpose of that. I look very much forward to meeting up with the families of some of the hostages that are over there. Along with getting updated briefs from some very important people as to the way forward. So I will be putting together videos for you guys of all of that crap. Obviously, I'll be taking notes the entire time where I'm not allowed to have my phone, where I'm not allowed to have camera equipment. I'm going to make sure, dang sure, I end up writing down copious amounts of notes for you guys so that you have them. Leon Boosen coming in, gifting out 50 Speak the Truth memberships. Hell yeah, brother. Thank you very much. You guys that are over there in the chat right now, there shouldn't be anything other than green names at this point. You guys are some of the most generous people I think that I've seen in supporting this channel. And that's what's absolutely amazing. You know, we went from originally producing like what are called VODs or videos on demand all of the time. And what I ended up discovering is that by doing these live sessions, number one, I get better interaction with you guys. And what we do is we end up taking that control from YouTube. You guys, by me going live every single frickin' day at certain set periods of time, I can update you as things are going down. It gives me an opportunity to answer your questions, like here, right, on this channel. It allows me to answer questions for you guys directly for when they pop up and when you guys have them. If you're gray, I apologize, right? We've got almost 1,300 people chilling in here tonight. Andreas Northam coming in, becoming a true supporter. Good to have you, brother. Great to frickin' have you. This is it. Mary gifting out 5 Speak the Truth memberships. Thank you, ma'am. Look at this right here. You end up seeing just massive destruction across these buildings. Again, over 800 drones, ballistic missiles. It's nuts. And cruise missiles being fired into Kiev. And the world is basically silent. Let's take a look at what this looks like as it was going down. Wayne Quigley says, I need to do a show with the apostate prophet talking about religion. You're probably correct. I probably do need to do that. Mighty Lewis coming in, gifting out 5 Speak the Truth memberships. Thank you for that as well. Yeah, it's funny to me too, the amount of people that tell me that I'm getting paid by Israel and everything else. And no, I'm not. I'm not funded by anybody. I'm self-funded through the work that I do here on this channel and through other social media. So that's how I make my living. And for as many times as I've crapped on radical Islam, I've also made sure to point out when Israel does things wrong. It's called the truth. And a lot of people can't bear it, which is why we end up seeing our, channel memberships increase and then go down and then increase and then go down. But it has been a steady incline over the last year because people are getting sick of mainstream media. And instead of hearing, random talking points, they actually want to know what the meat and potatoes is when I end up giving my take on things. What my take on things is based on my personal life experience that goes down to it. This Russian crap, I ended up seeing this firsthand, 10 years ago? Right? Before people even knew this crap was going on. And so it's funny to me that people want to sit here and try to claim that I don't know what the hell I'm talking about or that I have absolutely zero insight. Zelensky ended up making a statement about this as well. He said, since last night, work has been ongoing to eliminate the consequences of Russian strikes. More than 800 drones, 13 missiles, including 4 ballistic. According to preliminary information, several drones crossed the border of Ukraine and Belarus. Say that again. Several drones crossed the border of Ukraine and Belarus. In Kiev, ordinary residential buildings have been destroyed. In one of them, the floors between the 4th and 8th stories had collapsed. As of now, 2 people have been reported killed, including 1 child. My condolences to all their loved ones. In total, dozens were injured in the capital alone. The Cabinet of Ministers building was damaged. A fire broke out on the upper floors. More than 20 houses and a kindergarten were damaged in Zaporizhia. Warehouses were destroyed in Kryvyi and Chernihiv region. A residential high-rise was hit in Odessa. Many regions have been affected over the past day. Our emergency services are working everywhere, and they are needed. Such killings now, when real diplomacy could have already begun long ago, are a deliberate crime and a prolongation of the war. It has been repeatedly said in Washington that sanctions will follow a refusal to talk. We must implement everything that was agreed in Paris. We also count on the implementation of all the agreements to strengthen our air defense. Every additional system saves civilians from these vile strikes. The world can force the Kremlin criminals to stop these killings. All that is needed is political will. Thanks to everybody who participated. Jesus Crisco coming in says, you're doing the Lord's work, Matt. Love you, big dog. Thank you, sir. CJ Ladder says, good to see you, brother. Thanks, CJ, man. CJ, it's always a pleasure, man. You've been around for so freaking long. I got a shirt somewhere that has your name on it. That original one from when CJ first came in, it was just slopping his dong around inside the chat. And Rob and I were getting all pumped up, and he was like, Matt, you got to go do this. And I grabbed a white T-shirt, and I ended up writing CJ on it or whatever. I forget, but that shirt's still floating around somewhere, man. Taking a look at the damage over inside Kiev, and this is the information, like I said, that statement was by President Zelensky that he ended up putting out. This is probably one of the more significant shots that ended up getting taken of this. Definitely looks like one of the reentry vehicles coming in and I don't know whether or not it got hit or what was taking place there with it up in the sky, but that's definitely what it appears to be. It's freaking wild, man. Absolutely wild that they're going after those government buildings. And remember, the reason that Russia is doing this, that they're going after these government buildings is because their idea of denazification, and this was made clear during my conversation with Scott Ritter. Everybody's always like, well, what do they mean by the denazification taking place over inside Ukraine? They literally mean they want to change the government. Russia wants to control the Ukrainian government. And until you understand that, you will not understand why a peace deal is not possible between these two nations. Because Russia is going to continue to fight until they finish denazifying Ukraine. That means a brand new government that suits their agenda. Make no mistake about it. Russia wants to effectively control Ukraine by changing the government. They also want to reduce the military down to about 60,000 inside of Ukraine. Those types of things should sound familiar because all of that is what happened when Nazi Germany collapsed, right, after World War II. We ended up putting troop restrictions on Germany. We ended up freaking, like, you know, obviously the government's going to change at that point. All of those different things end up happening. This is what Russia's goal in Ukraine is. It has nothing to do with protecting those people in the East. If that's what their major goal was, well, that's what they would do. They could effectively stop right now. Ukraine might be like, yeah, it's totally worth it. You guys get your butts out of Zaporizhia, pull back to the freaking DPR and LPR. Maybe we'll cut that terrain off for you. But the problem is that Russia also doesn't want Ukraine to be joining NATO. And so because Russia doesn't want Ukraine to join NATO, well, here we are at this little freaking fix again, right? By the way, Ukraine is so far off from joining NATO, it's not even funny. Thus, security guarantees enter the house because from a Ukrainian perspective, they can't count on Russia to keep their word. That's the whole point of the Budapest Memorandum, was they were supposed to abide by and respect Ukrainian borders. So was all of the signatories to it, because Ukraine gave up nuclear weapons that were left in their possession after the collapse of the Soviet Union. There's nothing in there that says that they're supposed to be an impartial party. Nothing. That's Russian propaganda. The only thing that's in there is Russia and the other signatories promising to respect their borders. That's it. And Russia violated it several times. Dude, they were also supposed to respect the political, the political parties in Ukraine and not be interfering with elections like they got caught doing. Russia has violated that memorandum so many times. And so from a Ukrainian perspective, when they look at this, there's nothing that they can do. They've already given in. They've already pretended like Russia is going to somehow just be this magical country and nothing's going to frickin' happen, right? That if they just be nice to Russia, if they just play along and they give in, everything's going to turn out just fine. And the exact opposite happens every flipping single time. Every single time they do it, Russia ends up doing whatever they want. And it's flipping sad. Can't frickin' stand it. Today's devotional is going to come to you guys out of Matthew 16, chapter 16, verses 24 through 25. Goes like this. Then Jesus said to his disciples, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. What good will it be for somebody to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anybody give in exchange for their soul? This verse has several different meanings that go into it when you look at it. You must deny yourselves and take up the cross and follow me. Basically saying that, one, all of these worldly things that we want, all of the worldly things that we desire, is all based on our own intuition, thinking that we know what's best. And you guys can go and you can look at several different portions of the Bible where people actually thought about that, all the way back to the Old Testament. You can go reference 1 Samuel when people thought that they needed a king, right? And how that turned out and what ended up happening with Saul after all, right? Even though he was righteous at the time and everything else, the guy ends up like falling down and collapsing. We rely too much on our own logic these days instead of looking at things that are just common sense. We like to think to ourselves that, yes, this stuff is okay, and that maybe if we just like push peace in some cases, it'll all be fine. When in reality, Jesus wasn't always a peaceful individual. And when you look at how he's supposed to come back, he's going to be on a blood-soaked robe. People often think, and they mistake, as far as I'm concerned, Christianity for being a very peaceful religion, which it is. Very much is. As a Christian, you're a follower of Christ, and that's what you're supposed to do. But they also forget these other times where Jesus had justifiable anger. And he was able to do things, such as flipping tables over inside of a temple, because it was no longer a house of worship. He'd get turned into idolatry and sinful nature. And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to join me in the prayer for the end of this. And then I'm going to go ahead and close this sucker out. So, Lord, thank you for all of the gifts that we have been given here in this life. Please help us to have good discernment in what we are doing on a daily basis. Help us to see and walk beside you more clearly. Help us to understand what it is that we should be doing. Help us to rely and lean on you in times of uncertainty, because that is what we are called to do. Lord, also look after our enemies. We pray for their hearts, and we just ask that you go and you change them from their evil ways. Show them the wrong that they are doing. Lord, look over everybody that is in pain today inside Kiev, inside of Israel, inside Gaza, and inside of the West Bank, inside all places where genocide is occurring in this world, and try to bring peace upon the earth. Help the evil turn away. Help people turn from the evil. Lord, thank you for our good times and our bad times. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this morning's show. I've got a lot of prep to do. I also have another interview that's coming up here in a little bit with, I believe it was like Worldview. Yeah, so I got to take care of that. Ladies and gentlemen, peace, love, happiness, and God bless. I'm out of here.